Some families don't just disappoint you. They try to bankrupt your soul. My father called me claiming the roof was collapsing. He said water was pouring into the attic, and if I didn't wire $4,200 immediately, the whole house would cave in. His voice was frantic, shaky with fear. For the first time in years, I didn't just send the money. I went there. My father called me, claiming the roof was collapsing. He said water was pouring into the attic, and if I didn't wire $4,200 immediately, the whole house would cave in. His voice was frantic, shaky with fear. For the first time in years, I didn't just send the money. I went there. I drove through the icy Chicago wind to my childhood home, followed by a van filled with my most trusted roofing contractors. I expected tarps, leaking ceilings, water-stained walls. What I found instead made my blood run cold. My mother was standing in the driveway, arms crossed like a barricade, physically blocking the ladder. The foreman was trying to unload supplies, and she wasn't relieved, she was enraged. Screaming, she accused me of humiliating them, of doubting my father's judgment. Then the front door creaked open and out stepped my brother, Tyson. It was 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, and he was casually holding a beer. He glanced at the crew, then at me, and smirked. The air left my lungs. The shingles above were immaculate, bone dry, not a single sign of water damage. There was no leak. There was no emergency. There was never a problem. They hadn't needed a repair. They had only wanted the cash. I didn't yell. I didn't confront them. I didn't even step out of the car. I rolled down the window, signaled my foreman to pack up, and put the van in reverse. My mother slammed her hand against my hood, shrieking, "You think you're better than us?" For the first time ever, I didn't apologize. I drove away. Have you ever realized your family didn't actually want your help? They only wanted your wallet? Drop a yes in the comments if you've ever been the family ATM. I want to hear your story. I drove straight to my office in downtown Chicago, hands gripping the steering wheel, trembling not from fear but from cold, hard clarity. I took the elevator up to the 42nd floor, my domain. I am a senior project manager. I oversee towering steel structures, multi-million-dollar budgets, coordinate with unions, and prevent disasters before they even begin. I build things that endure, but the house I'd just left? It had been rotting from the inside for as long as I could remember. I thought back to that orange bucket in the hallway, catching every slow drip whenever it rained. When I was 22, I offered to hire a plumber. My dad refused. "Too invasive," he said. "I can handle it." A decade later, the bucket was still there. They didn't want the leak fixed. They wanted the symbol of struggle, something to point at when the neighbors came over. A tangible excuse to remain stagnant. And I was the fuel feeding the engine. I sat at my desk, staring out at the sprawling gray city below. I calculated in my head, $2,850. That's how much I pay each month to be their daughter, helping with the mortgage, Dad's medications, whatever they could blame me for. I never see the bills. I only get the alerts. Maya, the bank is calling. Maya, Dad's chest is hurting again. I looked at my car, a decade-old Honda Civic with a heater that barely worked. Then I thought of Tyson, my 32-year-old brother, who calls himself an entrepreneur. Last Thanksgiving, he drove into the driveway in a brand-new leased BMW. My mother called it a sign of his rising success. 3 months later, I discovered they had used my credit score to co-sign for it. "Be proud," they said. Proud that I carried him while his crypto vision failed. I am the foundation. A pillar that silently bears weight, but a pillar isn't alive. It doesn't feel. It doesn't complain. It just supports until it cracks. I glanced at the stack of blueprints on my desk. Clean lines. Precise calculations, perfectly accounted loads. Then I caught my reflection in the darkened monitor. Exhaustion stared back. Not the kind that comes from lack of sleep, but the kind that comes from burning yourself alive to keep others warm. Knowing they wouldn't even hand you a glass of water if you were on fire, the roof story wasn't a mistake. It was an escalation. They weren't satisfied with monthly tributes. They wanted a lump sum, testing the limits of my guilt, probing the walls to see if I'd collapse. But they forgot who they were dealing with. I know structural failure. I know that when a building is unsafe, you don't patch the cracks, you condemn it. Fence it off. Leave it standing empty until it can no longer hurt anyone. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Text from Mom. Then another, then a call from Tyson. Normally, I would have panicked, recalculated, transferred funds, apologized, absorbed their chaos into my body. But today, looking at the buzzing screen, I felt detached, like a project manager staring at a budget that's hopelessly overdrawn. Contractors corrupt, foundation compromised. It was time to stop work. At 6 p.m., instead of heading to my parents' house, I drove north toward the lake, toward silence. My apartment, a minimalist loft in a refurbished industrial building, awaited me. Exposed brick, polished concrete, floor-to-ceiling windows, a space where nothing was broken, where every object had purpose. I locked the steel door behind me. The click of the deadbolt sounded like a vault closing. I didn't turn on the lights. I let the city's blue glow wash over me. Then the phone buzzed again. Another wall of notifications demanding attention. Mom, you embarrassed us in front of the neighbors. Tyson, you ruined my liquidity pool. Dad, call your mother, she's crying. Normally these would have sent me spiraling. But tonight I didn't feel panic. I felt clarity. The chaos was no longer mine. I was reading a bad subcontractor invoice. Inflated. Fictitious, manipulative. I set the phone down, pulled out my high-end noise-canceling headphones, and activated them. Snap, the refrigerator hum vanished. Traffic disappeared. Even the buzzing in my head faded. Silence, my resignation. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't fixing leaks that didn't exist. I was done being the family savior. I opened my banking app, tapped the icon until it shook, hovered my thumb, and deleted it. No more emergency transfers. No more midnight anxiety. No more subsidizing their lies. I breathed deeply for the first time in years, letting air fill every corner of my lungs. I looked out at the Chicago skyline, rigid and unwavering, and knew I was done building on quicksand. From now on, I would invest only in structures that could stand on their own. I opened a blank spreadsheet. In construction, when a building cracks, you don't guess, you audit the foundation. You track every fault. I logged into my bank account, then pulled up a second window with every frantic email from my mother over the last 14 months. Urgent. Emergency, please help. I began entering the data. Column A, date. Column B, the excuse. Column C, the amount transferred for the first 20 minutes. The only sound in my loft was the furious clicking of my keyboard. I was in a trance. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a forensic content at a crime scene. I had always told myself it was a few hundred here, a few hundred there. I told myself it was around $19,000 total. A lot off money, sure, but the cost of keeping my prints safe. I typed in the final entry from this morning. The $4,200 I almost spent on the roof. Then I highlighted the amount column and clicked auto sum. The number appeared in bold black text at the bottom of the screen. 48,400,000. I stared at the number. The cursor blinked next to it, mocking me. That wasn't help. That wasn't chipping in. That was a down payment on a condo. That was a master's degree. That was 2 years of freedom. I had bled nearly 50 grand into that house in just over a year. But looking at the total wasn't a. I needed to know where it went because if the roof wasn't leaking and the water heater wasn't broken. Where did the money go? I opened the third window, Instagram. I navigated to Tyson's profile. He isn't private. He wants the world to see him. His bio reads entrepreneur vertical bar, cryptovisionary vertical bar, future millionaire. I scrolled back to August 12th. I checked my spreadsheet. On August 12th, my mother had texted me in a panic. Dad's heart medication isn't covered by insurance this month. It's $400. He's clutching his chest. Maya, please. I had sent the money within 30 seconds. Terrified that my hesitation would kill my father, I looked at Tyson's Instagram post from August 13th, a picture of a brand new curved Alienware gaming monitor. The caption read, "Upgrade complete." The command center is ready. Number grind, number gamer. I looked up the price of that monitor. $399 plus tax. My stomach turned over. Hard and cold. I wasn't paying for life-saving medicine. I was paying for pixels. I kept scrolling. November 10th, spreadsheet, entry water heater exploded. Basement flooding. Need $1,200 for emergency plumber. I looked at Tyson's feed. November 12th, a video clip. He was in a VIP booth at a club downtown. There were sparklers coming out of a bottle of Grey Goose. He was howling over the base, holding the bottle up like a trophy. The caption, "We don't chase. We attract big moves only." Bottle service at that club starts at $1,000. I sat back in my chair. The light from the 3 windows reflecting in my eyes. It wasn't just theft. It was a production. They had written a script, a tragedy about sick fathers and broken homes, and I was the only audience. Member buying a ticket. Meanwhile, backstage, they were laughing. They were popping bottles and buying toys with the sweet of my 60-hour work weeks. I looked at the spreadsheet again. It wasn't an allegory of debts. It was a list of times I had been played for a fool. I didn't feel sad. Sadness is what you feel when you lose something real. This was different. This was the feeling of a contractor realizing the blueprints were fake from day one. I wasn't supporting a household. I was the venture capital for a fraudulent lifestyle. I saved the file. I named it the receipts XLSX. He wasn't going to call them. I wasn't going to scream. You don't scream at a scammer when you catch them. You just cut off the access. But before I close the laptop, a question now at me. If I was this smart, if I was this analytical, how did I let them get away with nearly $50,000? Why didn't I stop it at the first lie? I needed to understand the glitch in Myeon's system before I could reboot for 3 days. I stared at that spreadsheet. Y'all think that seeing the theft in black and white, $48,000 stolen, would be enough to kill the love instantly, but the human heart is a stupid, stubborn organ, even with the evidence right there on the screen. I felt a physical, nauseating urge to pick up the phone. To call mom, to ask if dad had his pills, to transfer just $500. To make sure the light stayed on, I sat on my floor, back against the cold brick wall, trembling. It felt like withdrawal. And that's when it hit me. It was withdrawal. I wasn't the beautiful daughter. I was a gambler. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's the mechanic that casinos use to keep you glued to a slot machine. If you pull the lever and lost every single time, you would walk away in 5 minutes. You'd get bored. You'd realize the machine is broken. But if you pull the lever and lose 50 times, but on the 501st time, the machine lights up and gives you $10. You stay, you forget the 50 losses. You fixate on that one win. You tell yourself the big jackpot is coming. You just have to keep feeding it coins. My parents were the slot machine for 29 years. I pulled the lever, loss. They forget my birthday, loss. They compared me to
Tyson, loss. They demanded money, loss. They criticized my career.
Button, clink, clink, clink. When mom smiled at me when I paid for Christmas dinner, when dad told his friend, Maya's doing well. While I was standing right there, those tiny, infrequent payouts were designed to keep me seated at the machine. They gave me just enough crumb-sized validation to keep me hoping that one day, if I paid enough, if I worked hard enough, I would hit the jackpot. Unconditional love. I looked at the receipts file. That was an error record of expenses. That was a record of me losses. I had fed $50,000 into a machine that was rigged to never pay out. I stood up. The trembling stopped. You don't beat the house by playing smarter. You don't beat the house by analyzing the odds. You beat the house by walking out of the casino. I sat down at my computer. I didn't open my bank account this time. I opened the utility provider's website, the electric bill, the gas bill, the high-speed internet pack that Tyson needed for his gaming command center. All of them were in my name. All of them were on autopay from my account. I clicked on Electricitas Active. I moved the mouse to manage service. I selected stop service. A warning popped up. Are you sure? This will result in a total loss of power to service address within 48 hours. I didn't hesitate. I clicked confirm. Then I did the gas, then the water, then the internet. I wasn't being cruel. I was simply correcting a clerical error. I didn't live at 1547 Westwood Drive. Why's hold I be paying for its lights if Tyson was the man of the house? Surely could keep the furnace running. The silence lasted for exactly 48 hours, then the panic set in. It started with a text from Tyson, not angry this time, but confused. Tyson, yo, the Wi-Fi is down. Did you change the password? 2 hours later. Tyson, Maya, the power just cut. My PC shut off midstream. What is going on? Mom texted first. Naomi, Maya, the freezer is off. The meat is going to spoil. Call the electric company. This must be a mistake. Notification after notification rolled in. Not one asked if I was okay. They weren't worried about me. They were furious. Their free services had stopped. The vending machine had quit dispensing. Dad, pick up. It's freezing in here. Meanwhile, my life was warm, bright, peaceful. I sent a message. Maya, the accounts were in me name. I closed them. I don't live with her anymore. Then I put the phone down. The slot machine was finally unplugged. Days later, a final notice arrived by mistake. My parents' foreclosure warning. I opened it. 8 months of missed payments. I had sent them $22, Bobby marked mortgage. And they hadn't paid a cent. I called the bank pretending to be my mother. The agent told me the truth. The mortgage was 8 months delinquent and a $50,000 home equity loan had been taken out in February. I knew exactly where it went. Tyson's Valentine's Day crypto investment. A total loss. The house wasn't in danger. It was already dead. A hollow shell sitting on debt. That evening, Mom called screaming about third foreclosure sticker on the door. They demanded $2,000 immediately. I told them the truth. They needed closer to $80. Ling ling dot when they realized I'd called the bank. The lies unraveled. Tyson begged. Monkrieg, Dad shouted. I stayed calm. You didn't miss the mortgage. I said, you stole my money and refinanced the house bend my back. Their guilt trip came next. Family inheritance entity. I finally said the words I'd held for years. You are the gangrene entode, I'm the surgeon. I blocked all three and for once I felt lighter. 6 months later, I was drinking coffee on my balcony in Chicago. My savings were finally growing. I'd bought land for Asmo cabin up north. My parents were renting in Gary. Tyson worked at a warehouse. They told everyone I ruined them. Let them talk. I'm done listening. Cutting off toxic family isn't cruelty. It's survival.